What's up? Welcome back to another awesome episode of Lifeonaire Show podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. We got Polish Peter as a co-host today. And dude, we have kind of a little bit of a morbid yet sobering and quite frankly, a very, very important message for people. You know, about a month ago, I had a friend pass. He was 47 years old, had a heart attack, and left his family behind, his wife, children, and that's heartbreaking enough. And, none of us ever think it's going to be our time. And especially when you're younger, and this really hit me because, this guy's younger than me. I competed against him in bodybuilding and just great dude. And it kind of rocks your world. And when that happens to you or someone you care about, there's an incredible amount of grief and there's all sorts of so many questions, right? And your mind wrestles with all these things, but there's also a very, heavy, practical issue now that you have to deal with, which is what do you do as far as there's so many things to consider, and you might have life insurance and you have accounts and you have all, in addition to when you're coping with the stress of someone passing, you also have this additional weight and this burden of trying to figuring out, the estate side of things. And so on this episode, we're going to talk about what are some of the things you can do to ease that side of the burden of when something unfortunate and terrible happens, so that you can be prepared and not add additional stress to your family or loved ones, if you pass. And so, man, this is a topic that we covered with our Lifeonaire members a couple years ago, because we had one of our Lifeonaire coaches had passed. And so this was something that was front and center for all of us, and we've decided to share this with you. And it's not going to be a replication of that, but rather we're going to touch on some of the main points that you really got to think about. If you are if you're alive right now, and if you're breathing, if you're above ground, what are some of the things I can do to ease that burden for my family, when it's my day?
Yeah, it's a fun topic. Let's talk about this, because I think, obviously a lot of times people don't want to look at it, but I think it's a necessary thing that you have to look from the perspective,
Jesse Itzler, the founder of NetJets, he's married to Sarah Blakely. He said this once. He's like, if you haven't picked out whether you want to be buried or cremated yet, you just have not come to grips with your own mortality. You just haven't fully faced and embraced the fact that you are going to die. We all are going to die. Someday you could be listening to this podcast years down the road, and Peter and I may not even be on this planet anymore. And so we all have that same fate. What's that?
I want to be talking about that.
Well, dude, you need to face your reality, bro. Yeah. You're not going to be here someday.
I know. Listen, I know.
And so all of this happens for all of us. And so you gotta make that, and this drives me nuts, is when people will say and sometimes you may have family members, for instance, who you don't know anything about their estate. They may not even have an executor. They may not even have anybody in mind to do this stuff, and they're getting older, and you're sitting there hello, we got to have some conversations around this. And it can be very uncomfortable because, you don't want to come off like you're trying to grub at their stuff and hey, am I in the will, or, anything like that. But the truth is, you need to know this stuff. If you have aging parents, you need to know where these things are to make your life easier when they pass, because and I know they would never willingly leave you a mess, but that's what happens so many times. And I hear the stories over and over again, and an ounce of prevention here, is worth just so much after everything happens. Cause when that day comes, or when they're in the hospital and they're, not able to think clearly, it's too late. So you got to have these conversations now with your loved ones, and you yourself can do everyone else a favor by giving some serious thought to this stuff in advance.
Yeah. So let's talk about this, man. So obviously one of the first things that I think everybody should be looking from the perspective is a will, right? Having something on paper, actually sit down and putting all these things on paper.
Yeah. So the will is the easy part. And a will is, dude, it's so cheap. And, you can have your will set up and really differentiate. And by the way, let me also say that Peter and I are not legal professionals. So this is just some experience that we had. We're not telling you what to do. So talk with a qualified professional on this, so we don't get ourselves into like into
Yeah, I know.
trouble
Yeah.
here.
I mean, yeah, take it with a grain of salt what we're saying here. Yeah.
Right, right. Um, so you're gonna want to kind of think about some your will, like where are things going to go? Who do you want to have what? Is it going to be and by the way, like I'll tell you this stuff, dude, it gets a little bit more complicated than you think, because when you really sit down and think about who you want to get your stuff, maybe you do want it to be your spouse, or maybe you don't want it to be your spouse and you want it to be your kids, but maybe you want it to be your kids, but only if they're meeting certain criteria. And like, what if, okay, so, and here's a question too. If you're a Christian and you're a believer, there's this little parable in the Bible about, parable of the talents. And basically it says like to he who has been given and who's been responsible, you'll get more. And to somebody who's been irresponsible, what you have will be taken from you. And so do you want to include that in your will? Like, so maybe you have one kid who's kind of a little bit rogue and they're bad with money, but you have three kids. And like, if you give more to one than the other, is that going to cause dissension between your kids? It's just not worth it. Would you rather have them waste the money than disrupt the family? What if you have a kid who's a high paid surgeon, and you have another child who's a teacher, a PE teacher, and clearly there's a discrepancy in the earnings there. Do you take that into consideration? Well, they need it more than this person. Like, and by the way, I don't have the answers for this, but these are the questions you really got to think of. Now, one way to circumvent some of this stuff is I recently, last few months ago, read a book that was recommended to me called Die with Zero, which does kind of like solve this issue for you, because the goal here is that you essentially give away, if you have the intention of giving away things to your kids or whoever, for instance, like at any point, it's better to give it while you're still alive. And I'll let you read the book to get more clarity in that. But essentially the idea is like, hey, you can give it while you're alive and they can enjoy it. You can see them enjoy it, and you can also see how they steward it, and like, are they using it for good or not? But you have the will, because if you don't have a will, like you're going right into, you're going right into the legal system, and you kind of lose a little bit of control over that.
Yeah. So I think that's everybody probably heard about that and should know that, and talk to your attorneys or whoever it might be that will be able to help you write this out. I think another thing that is really important is, and actually I'm having conversation with some people in what's going on in my life, is having some kind of either power of attorney or having something that is giving someone a right to talk on your behalf.
Like a living will too, right?
Yeah, living the will, but even like so I know someone right now that they're in a hospital, they're not able to talk. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult for their family to be able to make any kind of decisions because of the fact that there was never a power of attorney in that particular case. So, I mean, obviously it depends on the state too, because I've done some research on that too. It depends on the state, whether it's next of kin, whether it's siblings, whether it's, spouse, whoever has the, first rights of kind of dealing with this kind of stuff. But I think it will be very beneficial to have conversations about that and power of attorney of what, who is able to make decisions on your behalf when you are incapacitated in some shape or form.
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, that power of attorney can be specific based on different types of decisions. Like you could have one person handle the finances, one person handle the health. Like, so it doesn't have to be the single person unless you want it to be.
yeah. So, and it's, it's really difficult. Like even, yesterday, me and my wife were talking about like what happens when you are in a place where you are not able to feel like you're vegetable, you know what I mean, kind of a thing. So all these kinds of conversations need to happen, I think, ahead of schedule to be able to go and make it simpler. It's not going to be easier, but I think it's going to make it simpler for people if something does happen, when something does happen, whether you pass away or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So you got, for instance, so just to cover, like you got your last will, or it's called last will and testament. It's your will. You may have a trust or not. That kind of depends on how many what you have for assets, and if you really need to avoid probate or not. But like for most people, probably don't need a trust. But again, like I'm not a legal professional here. You'd have your power of attorney. You'd have a living will, which is also kind of called your advanced health care directive, which basically specifies the treatments that you want, like life support, those kinds of things. You're going to have to talk about HIPAA authorization, like who has access to my medical records, those things.
Charts and everything. Yep.
So that stuff, an attorney can handle all that for you, and it's relatively inexpensive. And the only once it's done, you want to periodically review this stuff. You know, when you have major life changes, if you have a change in your family, you have another kid, if you have a spouse that you guys separate, those kinds of things. And it's probably a good idea just to, as your assets change as well, to review those periodically, but you don't need to look at it every month. Like, I'm talking like, every year is probably okay, depending on your situation. But the thing that I think that is very, very, very important is making sure that the appropriate people or person has access to all of your like life documents and all of your passwords, all of your accounts, your phone. Like this is like something like, and I'll tell you what I've done, and this is not a recommendation, but just like something that's worse for me. So for instance, what I've done is I've put together a Google sheet, and in there I will have things like hey, here's all my frequently asked password, secondary, like it'll ask like who's your what's your mascot, your middle name, maternal, your mother's maiden name, all that kind of stuff.
What's your mascot? What is your mascot?
I can't tell you, bro, because
it's just me and you talking, dude. It's just me.
I don't know, man. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. But things like social security numbers. I'd also recommend you have like lists of people who you trust in certain things. And so, for instance, let's say you are a business owner or investor, and your spouse is not involved in the business, or they don't know how to invest. Like, who can you send them to talk to that you trust implicitly, like to do the right thing and to help them through that? So like, for instance, I have the names of people in there to talk about certain things. Like, hey, if in regards to this company, you'll talk to this person. In regards to these investments, you talk to this person. And each of these, and a little comment about what you should talk to them about. Have their contact information, their email, and their phone. Your accountant, you should have their information in there. If you're a real estate agent, maybe you give me your broker's information is in there. Maybe a list of your documents and hyperlinks to those, so you have a link to your will and a link to your power of attorney and those kinds of things. That's just getting started. The other thing that I've done is I've included all of my my version 1 of this, which I've updated, was basically I have all of my bank accounts, all of my like IRA accounts, like everything, like where all my assets are, all of that stuff in a spreadsheet. And I originally had the URL and the password, but then I realized like, man, well, I change these passwords pretty frequently, and like I can't come in here and update this every single time. So what I decided to do there was use a password protection, system, software, whatever you call it, that now holds all of those in a specific, they call them vaults or folders, and all of those passwords and accounts are in a folder, and I've shared access to that with the people that I want to see it. And so now, by the way, does that mean that they can go in there right now and check what I have? Yeah. Do I care? No. And if you care, then maybe you shouldn't pick that person to begin with. Like that's, if you don't trust them to look at it now, then I don't know if I'd leave it to them when you pass. So for instance, and I'm looking at this now. I even have things in there like my rapid rewards and Delta points. I have like my IHG and my hotel. Like, listen, dude, I got like a couple of 100,000 points on these hotel things. Like, I want somebody to get those things, right? If you have QuickBooks, your accounting software, make sure that's in there. Your email accounts, like, oh my gosh, you have to make sure somebody has access to your email. Your bills, like I would include a list of your bills, like what's in there. Maybe entities that you own or assets that you own. I'm looking at here, man, like, if you have crypto, you're gonna want to have information about that. And then I'm looking here, like, and of course, like, all of your bank account information, like you should have bank account numbers, retirement account numbers, college accounts, any kind of accounts have that account number in there. So they can, and then the contact information, like, all that stuff is super valuable. I'm looking through here. That's most of it, man. Like what, that's most of kind of what I put in here. But again, like when I pass, I want people to know exactly where everything is. because dude, like now luckily like my dad was fairly organized when he passed. My dad died at 57 and he had a big drawer. Everything was paper back then. You know, he died in 2004 and everything was on a piece of paper. Like he had it all in a folder, but most people don't even have that. You know, like if you, I don't know, you know, I know, do they have life insurance? Do they not have life insurance? Do they have like pension? Do they, like, who knows unless you take the time to really spell this stuff out?
Yeah, I think that's really important stuff that you mentioned. I mean, I don't know how much I can add to that because you kind of went down to all kinds of details in there. One thing I would say, hopefully, am I any of the beneficiaries in there? Somewhere like maybe those 200,000 points or something
Dude,
at least?
no, but I do have something for you. This is a late Christmas gift. I don't know if you can see this. I bought this for you, bro. It's the Little Golden Book biography of Tom Brady. I did buy this for you because I know you're a huge fan.
That looks like total AI. Even that picture does not even look like him. That looks like a. Did you just?
Well, it says illustrated by Mackie something. So like, I mean,
this is an actual book.
It is an actual book, bro. I bought this for you for Christmas. Look, it tells Tom Brady's story, bro. I'll give this to you at the next event. This is for you, this is for you, my brother. Merry Christmas. Merry late Christmas.
No comment. No comment. Tom Brady. I can't believe it.
But so anyway, that answers your question.
Anyway, so yeah, talk about squirrel. Yeah. No, but the other thing that I want to say is this. So my wife, what she does for a living, some of you guys probably heard on this particular podcast, she works a lot of clients who are elderly. So there's been many discussions that she had with some of her clients. Let's say their spouse passed away. And let's say it's a conversation when the husband has passed away and now wife is basically there by herself. And she has no idea how to even pay the bill because he did everything. Okay. So I think it's really important for the couples to sit down. Like when my wife comes to me, sometimes she asks me, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? I ask her sometimes to either like sit with me to do this or how would you do it without me? And those kinds of things, because I think it's really important that granted, you might have divided up your responsibilities in a household, but I think it's important for the spouses to have those kinds of conversations to be able to go, hey, if I wasn't here, how would you pay this bill? And, you know, whether it's just an electricity bill or whatever it might be. I'm telling you, man, there has been cases that I heard from my wife about that the wife doesn't even know how to pay the electricity bill.
Dude, yeah.
So I think it's really important for spouses to sit down and, you know, share like what they do and talk about that, what they do. You know what I mean? So the wife or the husband, whoever it might be, can step into it. Granted, they're not doing this right now. Let's say they're not the one paying the bills, but if the time comes, they can step into that situation and actually pay the bill.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So important. Like I hear that so many times where one spouse is doing all the bills on one side of the equation and the other spouse is doing other things and they just have no clue. So like, I would also encourage you to, you know, create a video perhaps, and make sure they have access to it. You walk them through these things. You say, hey, you know, this is all the stuff. And of course that's gonna be super emotional for them because if they're watching that video after you pass, like, that'll be really hard for them, but it'll be super helpful for them to have this information. You know, if you have multiple businesses, like you're going to want to like, you know, have that information on your LLCs. You're going to want to have links to, you know, your merchant account access, you know, two-factor authentication, because chances are like if they try to get it, oh dude, give them your computer password. Like give them your computer password. Like I know, especially today where it's biometrics, but you can also set a password. Make sure they have that. Can you imagine, dude? Like I have so much stuff that would make their life easier because like if they try to access your sites from their computer, they may get a two-factor authentication and it might go to their phone or their email. And if you don't have access to that, now that's another problem. Your spouse should, or whoever that person is, like make sure they know your code to get into your phone. Like all of these things, you just gotta be totally transparent. And hopefully you have that person or those people in your life that you can do that with. Because it's heartbreaking when you see all of this compounded and God forbid, like there's, you know, some assets somewhere that you don't know about and they go unclaimed. And those, dude, I've seen some of these stats. It's staggering how many assets go unclaimed when people pass because the people just don't know about it. They don't know how to access it. They don't have the information. Really quick, also, if you would like the template copy that I gave to our members a couple years ago, it's a Google Sheet. Come to the Lifeonaire Facebook group It's called Build a Life and Business You Love. If you just go to facebook.com/groups/Lifeonaire, and we'll put that link in the description as well. Just come to the group, post it in the thread or the post on the page. Say, hey, Wojo, can I tag me, Jason Wojo? Hey, can I get a copy of that template? Legacy template is what I called it, I think. And then I'd be glad to have the team send that to you, or I can get that to you myself. So that hopefully that helps you. And then, again, there's a bunch of ideas in there on things you really want to include and things to like look out for. If you have an internet or an e-commerce business, like having access to your Amazon account. If it's like it's having access to your website, like those kinds of things, your WordPress. Like, so there's every single thing you do every day. I think we underestimate how much we just we do it every day, so we don't realize it. But imagine somebody trying to figure that out on their own, and how difficult that could be, and how long and laborious that task of figuring that out could be, right? And so, like, you don't want that for anybody. They're already grieving your loss. And
exactly.
Share this with somebody else. Like, give it to people. Like, give the template. Say, hey, this can be a hard conversation. I get it, but like, give it to somebody else. And by the way, the reason I chose to do a Google Sheet instead of a spreadsheet is because I can update it, and then everybody's working off the same version, if something changes, like, versus like having to worry about someone having an outdated, Excel file somewhere. So that's kind of what I've done, man. Like, anything you think I missed?
I don't know. So probably somebody's asking this question because with everything that's going on in the world about people stealing information and all that kind of stuff, right? So your entire life is in that one spreadsheet. So how you protect it from people to getting into it?
Well, for me, I'm kind of relying on the password management software,
How do you protect that sheet? Did you protect that sheet? Did you password protect that sheet?
The sheet is password protected as well, but that's all they can get that through so if somebody hacked into like the password protection software, they could probably trace it down, but they'd still have to know like the URL, because like it doesn't automatically pop up all the, like, they don't see all the sites. They'd have to know where they are. And so, like, there'd still be a little bit of a rabbit trail, but someone could figure it out.
But what I'm saying is, like, think about it. Someone gets into your email, like steals your email information to get into your email.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I don't email the information.
No, but hold on with me. So they get into email, right? So they get access to your email. They got your username and password. So most likely they get a username and password to your Google Workspace or whatever that holds your spreadsheet as well, right?
So no, that's password protected.
So the sheet is password protected.
Yeah.
By some kind of other password that you gave to the person that is going to get access to that. That's what I wanted to clarify for the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, like, you could do this on paper, like, if you want to.
Yep.
And like, here's the thing though, dude. Like, I don't know if it's any safer. Like, you know what I mean? I guess if you're going to get a security deposit box at a bank, you could do that. But if the bank burns down, or you could put in a safe at your house, but if your house gets broken in, like, there's no foolproof way to do it.
Yeah. But at least you're 90% better than most people. So.
Yeah. Like, and it's like, and I don't know, like, I'm sure this stuff there's fraud everywhere. Like, but I just wouldn't lose sleep over it. Do what you can do, like, reasonably. And then, and maybe you do have an attorney have all this stuff for you if you want to be ultra conservative, but also, dude, attorneys go bad too. Like, there is no fail-safe way.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen, so hopefully this was a beneficial podcast episode for you. I think it's a needed conversation to have. It's not the most exciting conversation, but I think hopefully you're going to at least take one step towards that full picture. So I want you today, right now, as you're listening to this particular episode, what's the one thing I can do right now towards, if I don't have this stuff in place, what's the one thing I can do right now towards getting this thing done? Whether it's a spreadsheet, whether it's going into your passwords and sharing with your wife or husband, whether it's, looking from all your accounts that you have, do you have beneficiaries set up in there? Something, take a one step towards that, because like I said, you never know what might happen. So hopefully this was beneficial for you guys.
All right, guys, we will see you next week. Take care.